Hi, my name is MooMoo Link. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Coming to you today for you guys to get to know me a little bit more, a little bit about my background, and where we're trying to go with Disrupt Promotions. So let me start by introducing me. For those of you that aren't familiar with me, I've been in business since I was 18 in a number of sectors. I've built more businesses than I can probably count. Currently, there's 30 to 40 companies in my group, spanning worldwide, from operations in the USA, UK, Middle East, Eastern Europe, Asia, and more into the African continent. I was originally born in South Africa, spent the majority of my life in the UK, and then quite a lot of my recent times in the Middle East. So that's sort of me in a nutshell. Now, I'm CEO and chairman of a number of companies listed in the US stock markets. So I'm really from a commercial background. However, that said, I also came from a semi-professional / professional sporting background when I was younger, playing semi-professional, professional rugby and cricket until my early 20s, when I really focused totally on business and really applied my sporting skills and the attitude, the desire to win almost at all costs, that work hard, play hard attitude that you learn so much in sport is something that I carried into my business world and has seen me pretty well. And the other thing is really important to me is to build successful teams. So people ask me almost on a daily basis, how can I be involved with so many different businesses, especially spanning across such a wide range of sectors? I've got businesses ranging from manufacturing fire trucks, ambulances, technology for firefighting, all the way through to a sports gambling business. I've got mining interests, some maritime interests, some oil and gas business. So I've kind of got a wide range of business. And I have a simple answer for that, is it's all about my team. It's all about my team. Just like probably with a lot of sports, the captain and the coach are one thing, but really it takes an entire team, everybody behind it, from physios, managers, coaches, sponsors, financial people, players on the field, attitudes, families, wives, kids, everybody supporting everybody to achieve a common goal. And that's something that I've tried to do in all my businesses. So I've always tried to recruit the very, very best talent we can find. And they may not necessarily be from the industry. It's very often people that come with the right attitude, the right determination and desire to win, and they bring in a special range of skills, and they're able to motivate and incentivize a team to perform as a team. And that's sort of something that, I've done, and I would like to say I've done particularly well. And it's something that I'm certainly striving to do particularly well in this business. So that's sort of me in a nutshell. And I'll go on to tell you a little bit more about sort of my interest into the boxing world. And we'll try and expand out a little bit further from there. Now, as I said before, I've got, a number of companies, 30 to 40 odd companies. So I'm not always accessible. However, I try and be as accessible as I can to people, to our shareholders, stakeholders, participants, team leaders, you name it. So although I may not respond to you personally, or you may not get an instant response, certainly my team and I are listening, and we sort of know what's going on. And I try to get out, as I say, as much as I can. So I will try and do these podcasts as often as possible, especially more and more in the beginning part, while people are getting to know us and getting to trust us and getting to see, what I and the team are actually trying to deliver here. And, we look forward to the journey together. So moving on to the topic of boxing. I came from, as I mentioned earlier, let's say a semi / professional sporting background when I was younger. And I wasn't born with a golden spoon in my mouth. I've worked damn hard for everything I've got, everything I've continued to create, and I still continue with that attitude. I'm still putting in 80, 100 hours a week. And it's sort of something that resonates quite deep with me with boxing. And I feel perhaps it's quite difficult, or more difficult, for people from the grassroots to make it through the boxing elements, because it's one fighter per fight, basically, or two fighters per fight, as opposed to, let's say, rugby or cricket, or some sports where there's a whole team of players where you've got much more opportunity of potentially making it. And also to get spotted is substantially harder potentially than cricket, where it's a mainstream, or rugby. I'm just talking about those because those are the sports I'm really familiar with, at a deep level. Where it's coming from a school background, you're automatically in the system, you get identified much easier. And even then, it's from a grassroots, from an underprivileged background, it's still pretty difficult. By the way, I have a sevens rugby team called Swifty Sevens, which actually recently won the Cape Town's 10 rugby tournament. So I kind of understand that sporting background. And when I look into boxing, I see how hard some of the fighters work from a very, very young age. And I look at what the potential, and I'm not an expert in boxing by any means, and I don't profess to. We'll build an expert team around us. But I see how hard their journey is to the top. And then I look at the vast gap between the guys at the bottom and the guys at the top, and the multi-millions of dollar gap between the bottom and the top. And I feel we need to try and empower the younger generations and the grassroots players, the grassroots fighters, to be able to create more opportunity for them. And that's something that somebody's got to take the bull by the horns and actually implement. And when I look at sports from a commercial background, because I'm not looking at it from a technical fighting point of view or combat sport at all, I'm looking at it from a commercial point, looking down on sport. Sport in general has been so commercialized across a wide range of sports, whether it's IPL cricket. We went from watching 5-day boring cricket games to now massively revenue generating, exciting sport with an IPL, which has got a whole ecosystem around it. The same is applied in many sports where the format has changed, whether it's Formula One, whether it's rugby, cricket, the rugby format's changing to sevens, even this new live golf. Sports in general is moving at such a rapid pace into the commercial world, and the money that's pouring into sport is obviously attracting commercial interest. I'm pretty sure most of you would have read or seen or heard about, some of these big hedge funds that are buying into sports, investing tons of money in Formula Ones, golf, cricket, rugby, tennis, you name it. And if we look at the likes of WWE and we look at the, UFC, those have become multi-billion dollar sports in a relatively short period of time for actually not doing much, but really just commercializing, professionalizing, and rolling a sport up into a bit more of an organized professional manner. And ultimately, as we're going through the generation of the baby boomers, as we call it, the older generation sort of starting to retire, and I don't mean this disrespectfully to all you boomers out there, almost lose relevance a little bit in the way information, the way technology, the way content is consumed. And we move more into this millennial generation. The millennials are thirsty for content, and they're thirsty for content on demand, not on a Saturday afternoon at 3:00. They always want content, and they want it now on their fingertips. And when they're bored of it, they'll delete it and move to the next one. Hence the evolution of TikTok and Instagram stories and all these type of things. And, with all respect to the past boxing regimes from top to bottom of the food chain, boxing hasn't moved on with that times. Boxing, I look at it from a commercial point, as I said, has become very bureaucratic, extremely political, extremely who knows who and who scratches each other's back. And that's not right. Ultimately, the spectator who want to consume the content and are willing to pay for the content are not getting the real value for money. They're not getting the real fights. They're not getting the real access to what they really want. And nobody's taking the time to really understand or listen to what they really want and to work out a plan on how to deliver that, which is really my simple ambition. We've got to be able to deliver content, exciting, exhilarating content, engaging content, and that's fights. That's coming back to and everything around the fights. There's an entire sporting ecosystem around boxing, which I don't believe has been developed. And when I say boxing, I'm also sort of, let's say, extrapolating that into combat sports in general. There's a whole bunch of other opportunities around combat sports, as we've seen with UFC. I mean, we've got Muay Thai boxing, there's MMA, there's a whole bunch of things which, haven't even scratched the surface of becoming commercial yet, to the level of what they're really capable of. So, as the generations are moving on, the younger generations need to come through and kind of take the bull by the horns, take the rein, and make things happen. And that really is up to us. And that is something that I've always strived to do, prided myself in doing. It's something that I live for. Money is one thing, but really the focus for me is making a change and disrupting, hence the company name. I'm sure although whether you like it or don't like it in the beginning, I'm sure it's a name that you'll grow to like over time, because that's exactly what we intend to do. We intend to be disruptive in the way we do things. We intend to bring new ideas, new technologies, new ways of doing things, and equally important, new people into the market from every level of the business. Now, I've got a listed sports entity on the US OTC market, which we intend to uplist onto the bigger boards, NASDAQ or New York, within the sort of next year or two, once we've built in some critical mass. And in that business, we've got an apparel business. So we own a company called Savage Sports, or Savage Barbell, actually, where we manufacture sporting equipment, apparel. So vest, tights, jean, leggings, shorts, etc. for, at the moment, mainly for the high functional fitness regime, so such as CrossFit and those type of classes. But now we intend to expand that range heavily into other sectors. And that's, again, part of my attraction with boxing, that, again, even the brands within boxing, in my opinion, don't take disrespect to some of the brands that do exist, are even a little bit stale. There's very new technology out. There's very few wearable tech items out. There's even very few measuring technologies out there for fighters to be able to measure punch speed, impact speed. I'm just really cutting it down to basics as a non-professional boxer or non-technical person. I look at it from the outside and I look at what exists in other sports compared to what exists in boxing. We dinosaurs years behind, like dinosaurs years. So that creates opportunity. So me, from a commercial point, I see the opportunity to really fill these gaps, solve these problems, and deliver enhanced content and engaging content to the consumer who want to watch fights. They want to watch the best fights, not just fights that two people are scratching each other's back and agreed to put on, but the best fights, and be able to engage in those fights, whether it's from a sports betting, a prediction angle, whether it's just getting involved in some type of fantasy league, whether it's just getting involved in open communication channels. I think there's a lot that can be done. So that was sort of really my angle for really getting into boxing. That it sort of fits my broader scope of what I'm trying to achieve within my public sports company. And once we've rolled up enough assets within Disrupt Promotion, and we've acquired enough assets. So what I mean by that is, and I think it was put out in the PR yesterday, our intention is very much to roll up and acquire assets. I'm typically from a mergers and acquisitions background. I like to grow scale as quickly as possible. And that typically means by feeding on, it doesn't sound the right way, not necessarily the vulnerable, but feeding on companies that are struggling to grow for whatever reason, whether it's through capital, whether it's through technology, whether it's through political reasons, whether they're just unable to, as a management team, take it to the next level. And there's a ton of great businesses and a ton of great ideas out there. So, we will be very aggressively going after acquiring and rolling up all strategic acquisitions that allow us to build scale and build a serious boxing business. That's not just fundamentally about physical fighting. It's everything around it, from technology, media streaming, advertising, apparel, proteins, you name it. It's a whole entire stream. And we've got some targets that we're looking at. We've started due diligence on a number of companies. I've got quite a serious due diligence team behind me that look after the due diligence of most of my companies. So we're busy in due diligence of a number of companies, which we hope we'll be able to start acquiring and start completing those deals within the next 2 to 3 months. In the meantime, we're looking for opportunistic assets, of which in the boxing world there seems to be no shortage of, thankfully for us. Now, when I say opportunistic assets, I'm using assets in a broad term. I don't physically mean a book or a house or a building or a machine. I'm talking about fighter contracts, manager contracts, TV rights, streaming rights, all that type of stuff. They're all classed as assets in the boxing world, which to us have a real value and a real tangible value, if not now, potentially in the future. So not only are we kind of looking to cultivate our own talent from grassroots levels in Eastern Europe and Africa, obviously where I've got really strong roots, and try and grow our own organic stable of fighters over the next, let's say, 2 to 10 years. There's some really strong fighters coming out of those places that, just as I mentioned in the beginning of this, podcast, just don't get the opportunity. They just don't get the opportunities, to come under the lights and be seen. So, we'll be working hard at sort of grassroots level to try and cultivate some of these fighters. But then from a top level, we're looking for opportunities, around fighters and managers and all CEOs, kind of from high to top level. So we're looking at a number, we're interviewing and talking to a number of very high level executives to join the board, both in the USA, UK, and further afield. So coming back to the existing assets, we are looking to acquire some of these assets immediately. We are glad to announce that we have acquired a whole bunch of assets, which I'll talk about in a little while, which will get us started immediately. So let me come on to that, in much more detail. Right. So just to get on to the elephant in the room. So I'm obviously spend a lot of time in Dubai. Those of you who've read up my bio and profile, we have our global headquarters here for most of my companies, where my finance team sit, my marketing team sit, most of my tech analysis team sit, really, which support the whole world. And that is something that's evolved over the last 5 years plus, for the reason being that there's been a massive power shift, whether we like it or not, or agree it or not, or even acknowledge it or not. It's the facts of the matter. There's a massive power shift going, and financial shift going, and political shift going from west to east. And that's obviously been sped up tremendously by the Ukraine-Russia war, and sort of how the countries around that and their different viewings, opinions, and their behavior and actions towards that. Now, I'm not endorsing it or not endorsing it. It's not something I know enough about or wish to comment on. It's not my place. However, the facts of the matter is that Dubai has and will continue to become a central global hub for business and for sport. As you probably know, the ICC is here, the International Cricket Council is here. Rugby, the International World Rugby, I think have some operation here. It's becoming more and more a centralized place for a number of reasons. One, obviously commercial, it makes sense. Two, travel-wise, it makes tremendous sense. From within hours, I can be pretty much anywhere in the world. I'm in the heart of the world. Obviously, tax is no insignificant thing to talk about. That it's obviously, tax advantageous to be here. But however, coming back to the political, financial, and all the other things around it, that Dubai makes sense. So, I saw some comments last night about me being linked to old regimes and people I don't even know, don't even, literally know as much about them as you. I read it in the paper, I read it on the internet when we've been doing our due diligence and research. So, I'm not really fussed about any of that or what people have got to say about it, quite frankly. So I move, a lot between Miami, London, Dubai, and Asia. We've got some activities between Singapore and Hong Kong too. So that's hence why my Dubai base. Now, that's in one way led to a really good opportunity for us in terms of the old historic Probellum. So, as I said earlier, we've been looking to acquire assets, various different assets, from media houses, promotions, data packs, data, executives, fighters, you name it, which obviously Probellum had some of them of. We took a real deep, dark look, a deep dive look, should we say, into the business. We were totally not interested in the business in any way for a number of reasons. However, some of the assets on their books were tremendously valuable to us. And when I say us, I mean the global business community, the global boxing community. Some of the fighters on those cards, I'm sure you would love to see fight. A number of Olympians, gold Olympians, a number of potential world title holders. And ultimately, that's what you guys care about. I'm sure, you guys thrive on the drama because that's human nature. However, what you really want to see is you want to see a big fight on a Saturday night that's a sold-out thriller. That's what you really want to see, and that's really our job to deliver to you. So looking past all the risk and all the elements that go with it, I've got a very serious due diligence team, both legal, financial, and forensic analysts in my due diligence team. We partly outsource our due diligence and partly do it in-house. And we had a good close look at some of the assets in that business. It took us several months. We've been in discussions for several months to finally reach the conclusion of what or if we were going to acquire anything. And I'm pleased to say we have acquired a number of their assets, the number of assets that we're comfortable with and that we feel either are valuable already, or we can add value to and create something great out of them. And that's really where we've left it. So, we've acquired those assets, and we'll continue to move on, and we'll continue to acquire assets from a number of other businesses. Where we don't acquire outright businesses and acquire the share capital, we will be acquiring some of the assets. That's my background, and mergers and acquisitions really is my expertise, and we'll continue to do that. And we'll continue to take a very close risk review on all the assets, wherever they're from. So just because it's come from a clean company in New York or somebody in the moon, it doesn't matter, and doesn't mean we take it at face value. Every business gets the same amount of due diligence and the same amount of reviewing. Now, I'm obviously heavily involved in the capital markets, the financial markets, so my reputation and my diligence and ethics are very, very important to me and very important to my shareholders across tens of thousands of shareholders across my groups of business. So it's not something I'm about to put on the line by taking an irresponsible, stupid risk. So basically, I think I've said enough on that. It's not something that I'm interested in. I don't know the past regime. I don't know anything about them. I don't know who they are other than reading commentary on the papers and media and stuff. And it's not something I really want to get involved with. Whether they did well or didn't do well, I have no idea. Obviously, it's pretty obvious to see that they created some boxing businesses in the past, some significant boxing businesses in the past, and therefore I'm sure created a lot of opportunities for fighters that may never have had that opportunity. And on the other side of a coin, I'm sure there's been a lot of things that probably people are not very happy about and haven't gone to plan. And obviously the world is not particularly happy with. But I'm not interested in it. I really couldn't care less. It's got nothing to do with me. I don't know them. I have no intention of them. I'm a white collar guy. I've come from, a work hard business background, create what I've got. I don't think I've ever been in underground in my life. And I say underground in broad, inverted commas. It's not something where you would ever find me. It's not something where I've ever come from. It's not something I even understand. So, it's really not on my radar, to put it bluntly. What I'm interested in is buying assets from any company in the world that have valuable assets that we can roll up and create a great business. And that we'll continue to do. So, I think I've had enough discussion on any of the past. Whatever the past was, it's got nothing to do with me. We didn't buy the business. I wasn't interested in the business. We didn't buy the shares. Many of the people and teams we didn't buy. We really picked and selected the best assets that we feel. And going forward, we will continue to find those assets, specifically executives we're looking for. We're interviewing and in discussions with a number of executives who bring all across the industry globally, who bring all sorts of value add to us, whether it's contacts in media, whether it's fighting contacts, whether it's promotions, you name it, whatever it might be. And we're in those discussions. And, as those people commit to us and start to sign up to us and start to believe in what we're doing, those announcements will be made to the market. But one thing I would say, wrapping up on that, on that topic, I play to win. I always play to win. Winning, losing is not something I understand. Really, losing is first. It's just not something that's even something I comprehend. So on that basis, it's about us a winning team, winning fighters, winning team, winning supporters, winning backers, and providing content that everybody is really thrilled about and wants to be part of, and a brand that people are proud of. And when I say people, I mean right across. I want to see people out there wearing our t-shirts, our logos on TV, our logos on boxing fighters, top people endorsing it. The fighters want to be part of our brand. And when we get to that position, and that will happen, it's going to take time, but it will happen. And once we reach that part, we can start to say our flag's in the ground and we now actually exist as a brand. And I look forward to building that out with all of you. Thank you for your support and everything in the meantime. I'll try and be as accessible as I can be. So please reach out to me if you need to. The team will, no doubt you'll get a response from the team, but I do listen and I do hear what's going on. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the fights and some of the upcoming exciting things we've got. So please watch the news wires, sign up for our database so you can keep in touch with what we're doing. Watch our Twitter channels. We'll release as much news and as regular news as we possibly can. And obviously this next, let's say 3 to 6 to 9 months is very, very exciting in our company's journey. And probably I'd like to say, looking back in 2 or 3 years' time, we'll look back and say it was very exciting in the history of boxing. If we're able to disrupt the sport as much as we hope we will, with new ideas, new talent, new ways of doing things, new technologies, you name it. So please keep an eye out on the social channels. Thanks very much for that. And excitingly, we're busy in the process of now scheduling out fights for the majority of our assets that we've acquired, which will be publicized shortly, and also putting on some really exciting fights. So we're in really, really exciting discussions with 2 major fighters, a famous American fighter as well as a British fighter, for what will probably be one of our biggest fights, or definitely one of our biggest fights, but one of the biggest fights probably this year. It's been coming for a while. I think boxing enthusiasts will probably be able to guess who it is. We're in discussions over that, and we're looking potentially to put that on as probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, charity fight in history. Really, which will be for the earthquake victims and families of Turkey and Syria. Obviously, we've seen the devastating news over the past weeks or so, and the people there really need our help. And you guys want to watch some thrilling and exciting boxing, and we feel there's no better opportunity to put the 2 and 2 together. And obviously the underlying for us is that puts us on the map as the first proper, really exciting fight under our new brand, under our new umbrella. And please watch out for the news on that. We hope to bring you official announcements as soon as possible. So wishing you all well. and I will try and keep you updated on a personal angle as much as I can with podcasts from time to time. And I thank you all for your support, both now and in the future. And also thank you for your patience. Building a business from the ground up and from scratch takes time. And thank you very much for that. So all the best, and hope to be in touch soon.